Hello, everyone. Ayvaunn Penn here with Black and Making It, all things Black excellence in the arts and education. I am here today with Tony Award-winning Broadway producer Ron Simons to talk about Sugar Hell, a nutcracker of a completely different kind, something different. And it is set to the music of Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn. And we're going to dive in a bit into what the show is about and hear from Mr. Simons about his inspirations for working on the show, the whole 9 yards. Mr. Simons, how are you doing today?
I am blessed and highly favored. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I am good. It's always great talking to you because you always say that. I look forward to it.
Because it's true. That's why I say it.
Yeah, it is true. It is true. First things first, can you tell people a little bit about you and who you are? I mean, I've been blessed to get to know you, but share with the Black and Making It audience your fabulousness, Mr. Simons.
Well, I began from the humble beginnings of an automotive family in Detroit, Michigan, and grew up and moved away to come to New York to be a doctor. So I went to Columbia College. And then I think my second year, I decided that that was going to take too long and I was not patient enough to spend that many years before I would actually start practicing the thing that I was studying. So I ended up graduating with a dual concentration in computer science and theater arts. Now, back then, I'm so old that they didn't even have a theater arts program. So all of my classes in theater arts were under the English department, and they didn't have a computer science program. It was called information systems. But that's the parallel. So when I graduated, I had a choice. Oh, okay, so should I follow my path for being an actor? Or should I follow the path to be a computer scientist? So I applied to the Yale School of Drama, and I was on track for having an interview and for that, but finally decided that I was going to go to the Bay Area and basically work in Silicon Valley. So I spent a number of years developing software in manufacturing systems for like Hewlett Packard. I started developing artificial intelligence-based systems for F500 companies. And that's AI from way back then, not the AI now, which is everywhere and everyone and everything. It's a completely different beast. It has grown so much since I was developing such systems. But then, I found myself going back to school. So I got an MBA at Columbia Business School in marketing, international business. And then I went on and got an MFA at the Professional Actors Training Program at University of Washington. And I came back to New York for the third time and I started acting. And that was 2001. And in '09, I decided I was going to be a producer. Why? Because I thought that the work that was being greenlit was kind of mediocre. And I thought, well, I think I can do mediocre. I think I can actually do better than mediocre. So without a class, without a mentor, without reading a book, I just hung out, my sign and said, I am a producer. And I was expecting to start off like, a small piece that I might find, off of Broadway or out of town. And it actually turned out the first thing that I did was a film, which I loved. And it was called Night Catches Us. And it was with Kerry Washington and Anthony Mackie and Wendell Pierce, who I just saw like literally 45 minutes ago when he was performing this reading of this old play that I had never even read. And he was, of course, phenomenal. And I'm hoping it'll come to Broadway, but more on that later. Maybe I'll get involved. Who knows? And so then I started doing, more Broadway and then film. And then over the years, I think I've done about 10 or 11 Broadway shows and about just as many films. I create in that process my company, Simon Says Entertainment, www.simonsays.entertainment.com, just FYI, with a mission to tell every story. So the mission of the company is to tell the story of underrepresented communities. And that's been the guiding light for me since I started producing. Now, I still, however, if I smell money, I'll go after the money, right? So for example, there was this play called Fish in the Dark with Larry David. I didn't even read the cover page. I was like, I'm in. I'm in. And
Yes.
we recouped $18 million before we even opened. And I could sometimes you just smell money. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But by and large, I'm about diversity. And I also spend a good amount of time working to diversify the space because when I became a producer on Broadway, there was me and another duo, and that was it. And I spent years in rooms where I was the only person of color on every production. And that meant like not only the only producer of color, but there was none in advertising, marketing, press, social media, nothing at all. I was the diversity. So I've been working hard to diversify the great white way, hoping to make it more like a great tan way, maybe beige.
I love
So, so I have a number of mentees, all of whom are Black women. Now, actually, I think I am about to bring on my first Black man as a mentee who's brilliant, and I think he's going to do great things. You can just sense when someone has that capacity to be a really good producer, and I think I see that in this young man. And then I
wonderful.
met you, right, through
Yes.
our alma mater, Columbia. And you
Mhm.
were just a student learning things. And now you're big time directing operas and writing. And I mean, it's like you have just flourished and become the pride of Columbia. And I just think that you're just an amazing human being, an amazing person, and you are just doing great work. So I'm so happy to be here with you today.
Oh, well, such kind words. And you were such a fabulous mentor and still continue to be a wonderful mentor. So thank you for what you've invested in me for sure.
Of course, I'm happy to do so because I see what great promise, and it's already coming to fruition.
Amen.
Amen and amen.
Amen. We'll
Amen.
sprinkle it all around.
All
So
right now.
let's talk about Sugar Hill. So the world is familiar with the Nutcracker, right? But this is something different. How is Sugar Hill different from the Nutcracker that people typically think of?
Good question. So this Nutcracker, unlike the Tchaikovsky's original Nutcracker, and what is you'll see in ballet companies all around the world. And by the way, the Nutcracker is a huge, huge component of most ballet dance companies' income. It usually represents about 40% of the money for the whole season comes from
Mm,
just the Nutcracker.
mm,
So
mhm,
really it's a big deal. But what makes this one special and different and unique is that it is set to the jazz interpretation of the Nutcracker as composed by Billy Strayhorn and Duke Ellington. So the music is sublime. And we have taken the cast and the story into Harlem. So instead of the little girl being usually a cute little, white girl, this little girl is a Black girl. Her name is Lena, fashioned after Lena Horne. And
mhm,
so, like the original, we have a story that is essentially about finding your magic. We talk about Black girl magic all the time, but
mhm.
literally, this show is about Black girl magic. That is exactly what this show is all about. So, you see this journey of this girl, right, who starts off uncertain and afraid. She finds herself in Manhattan and is a scary place. And, she, by the end of the story, finds what makes her different. And through that, she finds her magic. And so
Mm.
it's just so, for me, it was really important that this story be told because I think that not only we as Black adults, but also Black kids and children need to see images of themselves on stage and
Mhm.
hear a message of it's okay to be whoever you are. And
Yeah.
if you truly be your authentic self, then you will find your magic and you can go out into the world and do great things because you have found that makes you different. And so for me, that was a very important message. And I think that we need that more than ever. And so
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
story delivers that. And it's just so amazing to see so many Black and brown bodies on stage moving in such graceful, beautiful, athletic ways. And the show has, of course, ballet, but it also has tap, and it has the Lindy Hop, and it has pop and lock it, which I didn't even know the term. I took me about 6 months to go pop and what. So, we've got four different choreographers who have four different specialties, and they're all bringing in dancers who specialize in those
Hmm.
different mediums of dance. And so I was saying to someone, I think it was yesterday or today, I said, what makes this for me so magical is
Hmm.
it seems as though the score was written to underscore the exact dance that's happening on stage, no matter what the dance form is,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so it's very seamless how we can go from, tap and ballet and, pop and lock it and the Lindy Hop. It's all just one mixture to make this beautiful buffet of dance and music. And we have a 16-piece orchestra, which we just
Mm.
heard for the first time last week. And when I tell you that music soars, I do not exaggerate. I think blind and deaf people should come see this show, because the blind people can hear a concert that is extraordinary, and the deaf people can see such beautiful bodies moving on stage. It's something for everyone. It's a great family piece. It happens to be happening in Chicago, opening December 19th, which is
Hmm.
perfect time for the holidays. So if people are looking
Hmm.
for something to
Hmm.
do that's a little different than the ordinary, you know, Christmas Carol or ballet or Nutcracker, here is a new piece that is changing the form and bringing something new, because this is the first time a professional dance company production is being mounted using this particular music. And also for me, it's
Hmm.
also very important to celebrate the writers. Like a Billy Strayhorn, who was an extraordinary composer, didn't often get his dues because he was sort of like in the background with Duke Ellington, and Duke Ellington paid him exceedingly well, but
Hmm.
he was kind of in the background. Now we can see his work lifted and celebrated, and we can celebrate the man who he was. We had Billy Strayhorn's niece came to a rehearsal last week, and she spoke
Mm.
how this has always been a musical endeavor that she has known and loved for years, but now to actually see it, to see it
Yes.
set to dance, was so heartwarming for her. I literally, everyone, I don't think there was a dry eye in the house,
Oh,
about, because she shared with how important it is, number one, for a new generation to
yes.
see and hear the music, but also see it in the context of a new and different Nutcracker that isn't
Yes.
just the classical piece. So we were totally jazzed by that. I got great pictures with her. I'm going to frame them and put them. I don't have them
Yes.
somewhere. I'll figure it out. But so yeah, I'm very proud. I'm so proud of the work that's being done on this show. It's the photographer who came, who photographs a lot of dance companies, says, "You guys have the best of the best," and he's right. It's a beautiful, beautiful show and a great place to spend an evening or afternoon if you're at the matinee.
Yes. So you kind of touched on this already, but is there anything that you've not already shared as the reason that you decided to join this project as a producer on it? Anything additional?
Well, of course, as I said, the main thing was the story itself. A little Black girl
Hmm.
finding magic was very, very compelling for me, and it put it right in the middle of my wheelhouse of television.
Hmm.
Um, but also, I really wanted to work with these choreographers because I've never done a dance piece before, right?
Hmm.
So for me, this is a new territory, and I'm always open for learning new things, new places. So this gave me an opportunity to work with these world-class choreographers and to sit in rehearsals and know what it takes to create a dance piece. And it is so different than what is necessary for, say, a play or a musical.
Hmm.
It's closer to a musical because you have dancing and singing,
Hmm.
but it's pretty extraordinary to see world-class dancers learn from these world-class choreographers, because I don't know any of the terminology at all. I
Mhm.
know the word
Mhm.
plie, and that's about it. But there's a whole, of course, an entire vernacular in dance
Yes.
that says, this is
Mhm.
what I want you to do here. And so without even showing them, the dancer can execute these series of dance moves because that's what the choreographer said, using the language of dance, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, that's absolutely extraordinary. And also to see how different choreographers work. Like some choreographers in our show basically choreographed it working with their dancers offline before we came into the rehearsal studio. And but
Mhm.
another choreographer literally choreographs in the room at the rehearsal process, right?
Mhm.
And his model is, I want to leverage the strength of a dancer, and I can't see that until they're in the room. And then I create a story and I create a dance that lifts their particular strength. And so if I can give them work that is in their wheelhouse, that is their strength, then of course they will be able to deliver an extraordinary performance because this is exactly
Mhm.
what they are best at. You know what I mean? So learning
Mhm.
all that was a great, amazing thing. And I've gotten so much out of it, having been a producer for this dance piece. And hopefully maybe one day, maybe I'll produce an opera. Who knows? We'll see.
Maybe, yes,
Saying. And
absolutely.
I don't know if your audience knows this, but this young lady, your host, is actually going to be actually directing an opera next year. But I'm gonna let her say that on her own show, her own segment. I don't know. I hope I didn't blow it and bring the
It's
cat
fun.
out of the bag.
No, it's posted on the website, so it
Okay.
can officially be spoken.
Okay. Great.
Um, yes, but listening to you speak, it really so funny, not funny, linking in the world of higher ed and what we were discussing in faculty meeting the other day about how different people work, right? So it's really wonderful to hear you talk about getting to see side by side the way two different choreographers work, how some people do all the prep outside and how some people can work in the moment. One of the most magical moments I had working on a show was with Regina Taylor and on Stop Reset at the Goodman Theater. And Daniel Romaine was doing the musical compositions for the work. And he came into rehearsal, his first day in rehearsal, and I called it playing faces. In short, world, that technical term is probably just improvising, but he had no
Hey,
score. He just
nothing.
watched and he was just playing away based off of the scenes that he was observing and the emotions that he was deriving from the characters. And it was the most magical thing I had ever seen. Ever. So I get it. It really is wonderful to sit in on that creative process, not even just taking in the finished product, but seeing what goes into making everything happen is truly a treat.
It is and has been for me. Absolutely.
And so while we're on this aspect, one thing that I always look to do with Black and making it is that educational aspect, because there's no secret, right? In the African American community, we have folks who are big film fans. We have people who have their favorite TV show. They've been to Renaissance tour and they have their favorite musicians, but we have really amazing artists doing the work that you're talking about. And so what value do you feel lies within Black families scooping everybody up and going to see a live, how shall we say, performing arts experience in the realm of ballet, theater, opera? How is this? Well, we know the obvious reasons why it's different, but what special nuggets are nestled in there that don't need to be overlooked? With these other art forms around, we're not poo-pooing on the other art forms, but we do want to show people the magic of why this. We're going to fly to Chicago for our holiday trip and go see Sugar Hill. Why are we hopping on the plane?
That's a very good question, actually. And the reason I would say, and there are a myriad of reasons, um, some of them include there is a uniqueness in live performance. And I don't care
Mhm.
if you've watched the recording of, let's say, Hamilton. it is not the same thing as being in the room. There is no, and I cannot tell you how different the experience is when you're in the room where it happens, quoting from Hamilton, right? Because that experience makes you part of the process. It makes you part of the storytelling. Because without an audience, there is no theatrical production. The loop isn't closed until the audience is in the space with their butts in the seats, and together we make this experience. Because you will never see, even no matter what the performance or production is, you will never see the exact same performance again. What you see was for you and is only going to be seen by you. Will there be tomorrow? Yes. Will there be similar dance moves? Moving the tables have to go in the right place? Yes. But live theater is what I refer to as a quickening. There is an excitement that lives in the air when you go see live theater. It is the reason why kids 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 can sit in the theater with their mouth open and look and see what real people are doing. And what I love about that process is that it also shows, especially for Black children, we often don't, because so few of us actually come to live theater, that we don't see what's possible, right? To be in the room gives you a moment to say, I feel inspired by this form, this dance, this song, this acting, right? And I can envision myself doing it because we're the same skin tone, because, I see myself on stage. And that's so, so important for young people, because art actually allows, no matter what your educational background is, art allows you to expand, from my point of view, your spiritual, intuitive self, because it speaks to you not just on an intellectual level, but good theater and good production speak to you on an emotional level. And when you can sit and in a theater and be moved emotionally, then that is starting to connect with who you are on, and I know, spiritual plane. Some people probably don't believe in spirits and all that. I do. And so for me, it's really, 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 really important that that the young people get to have this experience, because it is a blessing. It is absolutely a blessing. And you learn more about yourself with good theater than even about the story that you're seeing. Because what good theater does is it allows you to draw parallels between the story you're seeing on stage and the story that you are living in your life. And so that's what makes it also lifted, because now I can understand and relate to what I'm seeing because I have lived through it, or I am going through it, or I may yet go through it. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So all
Yeah.
those are part of the reasons why I think, going to see live performance is so incredibly important. So important.
Everything you just said, and then when you brought up Hamilton and Lin-Manuel Miranda, it made me think about something that he said. Somebody asked him during the whole Taylor Swift Eras tour thing. Somebody, I guess, when she decided to have it filmed and go up in theaters or something, somebody asked him about exactly what we're talking about right now. And if Hamilton is streaming on Disney Plus, why should people actually go see it? And he said, well, the same reason you go see your favorite music artist in concert. You've been at home, you've been listening on your iPod or your phone or your Google Pixel, all these other, things that you can listen to music on. You've been Spotify, you've listened everywhere, but you're excited to go be in the room with them. And that energy is crazy energy. It's not crazy energy. It's it's crazy big. When so many people who are passionate about the same thing enter the space together and share in that. That's something that, as you mentioned, it cannot be replicated. You can sit at home and jam all day, right? But it's not the same experience as dressing up and going out. You don't always have to dress up to go see live performance. If you
want to see Beyonce, I don't know, because those children dress to go see Beyonce. You hear me? I mean, they dress.
All that silver chrome everywhere.
Yes, yes, yes.
For sure. And that's a part of the fun. And frankly, I thought, man, all of those clothing stores are thrilled that Beyonce was swinging through.
You know they were.
Chrome, everything gone.
Everything gone. That's right. That's right.
Let's see, what else did I want to ask here? Also on the note of educational, right? I'm a theater professor, and I'm thinking about these conversations happening in the industry, which, by the way, audience, I always have to remind us, yes, we're talking about live performance, but Mr. Simons referenced Wendell Pierce and Kerry Washington, these people you loved in Scandal and all these other TV and film shows. When they're not doing that, they're doing theater. And just like you enjoy them in these other mediums, how much more wonderful to go see them live and in this other element. It's all connected. I think sometimes can be this feeling or perspective of theater is for white people. No, it's not. No, it's not. Jennifer Hudson's now in what do they call it? EGOT. A goat, EGOT, right? She's not only performed in shows, but now is stepping into the role of producer. Now I'm taking another turn. All right. So there's these questions out there circulating in the industry about these stars hopping in as producers. Do they really deserve these titles? Can you educate us a little bit on what goes? Okay, there's a lot that goes into producing a show that we probably can't talk about it all today. But when someone hears the word producer, in a nutshell, what does that mean exactly?
Well, if you're talking about a lead producer, they are essentially the founder, literally the founder and CEO of the company. And by that I mean, when we do a Broadway show, you create an LLC, a company, and that LLC has managing members, and that's essentially the CEO. So it's those lead producers who make all of the decisions that go into making that show. We may not do the director's job and direct what's on stage. We can't do the actor's job and perform, or the singer or whomever. But we have to go out and hire the cast, the crew. We have to hire the attorney who actually, who creates the LLC on our behalf. We have to hire the advertising agency. We have to go find a theater for us to do the work in. We have to find the advertising company, the press company, the social marketing company, help promote the show. So it's essentially the producer is the CEO of the production, because it is that person who has to, at all roads, the buck stops at the producer's desk. So if there's anything that goes wrong, no matter what the problem is, if it can't be resolved at the end of the day, it comes to the producer for some type of resolution. So it's a big job to be the lead producer. There are other kind of producers, right? There's a co-producers, where you can either just invest your money or bring money to the table. You don't have to use any of your own money, and coming to the table, then you become essentially a sounding board for the lead producers. It's the lead producers who make the decisions, but co-producers can sit in a room and say, I don't really like that television ad, the way it says, tomorrow and tomorrow, or, listen to the radio spot, or look at what the advertising is going to be in the New York Times or in Essence Magazine or in Ebony or what have you, right? They are more of a consultant role. But the lead producers are the people who make all the decisions about everything related to that show from a business point of view.
All right. So thank you for that clear explanation. So now, people who say, Jennifer Hudson's not a real producer, she shouldn't be walking around saying that. John Legend's not a real producer. He's just kind of throwing his name on things. And so what can you provide some insight into what's what with this? What's your perspective on that?
And that's also a very good question, because yes, there are celebrities who will lend their name to a production, and I am a producer, and they can lend their names in different facets. One thing I did not talk about is being an executive producer on a show, right? Your name may appear even not only above the title, it may actually appear above the name of the lead producers. But they can serve a very important purpose, and that is
Mm-hmm.
lifting the profile of the show. It's one thing to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, come see this Nutcracker. It's another thing to say, hey, come listen to an Alicia Keys composition, inside of this production of the Nutcracker, right? So they do their job. For example, with John Legend, he was a producer on my show, Take Me Out, a one-man show with Dick Gregory, about Dick Gregory, starring Joe Morton, Papa Pope from Scandal. And he did interviews for free. He wrote a song specifically for the show, which of course his label's like, we need to put this on an album, right? He was there. He was there opening night with his wife. So he was an actively involved producer who can promote the show. And the reason why that's important is because John Legend, can get an interview with People magazine, whereas I would not, because nobody wants to hear what I think or say. But John Legend, because he's so loved and has so many millions of followers, excuse me, right? He can talk about the show and get it in front of people who otherwise we would not get the show in front of. So that's part of why it can be a very good thing to have a celebrity producer. Now, do celebrity producers sit down and do all that work, for the advertising and the marketing and make this? No, they don't make those decisions. But some might want to be involved. For example, I'm doing another show called The Soul Train Musical, the hippest trip in town, the Soul Train
I'm
Musical.
looking forward to this.
Yeah. Let me tell you, it's off the chain.
Because
Okay.
y'all just went up in where?
And at ACT in San Francisco.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we broke all their box office records,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like that show is a brand, right? I don't have to explain to you, oh, let's go see this show about Soul Train. Even if you haven't seen a single clip of the show, you have an idea in your mind of what Soul Train is about. So before you even see the first ad, if you love the brand, you'll perk up, right? Oh, I can't wait to see that. And that's why it's sold out everywhere, right? And so my point in bringing that up is that Questlove is a producer on the show, as is John Legend. I don't know if we've announced that yet, so shh, audience, don't tell nobody yet. But the thing is that they both put money in the show, right? So they aren't just, oh, here's my name, just use it, and hopefully we'll put butts in seats. No, they actually have skin in the game, and that's not always the case. In fact, it's usually not the case. It's usually that it's just the name that the celebrity lends and not the money.
I'm getting a little education too. See, that's what Black and Making It is about. Understanding how all of these, and frankly, understanding what these stars that we do know about, if we're not necessarily theater nuts like you and I are, the other ways that people we love are involved in other aspects of the arts. So I think that's really cool.
I do too. And I also want to say, one of the things that I've learned once I became a lead producer when my first show was Thoughts of a Colored Man was that, all of my investors were Black people, except for two. They were all Black people. And every single one of them said, because none of them had ever invested in Broadway before, right? All of them said they had no idea that they could even invest in a Broadway show. Why? Because no one ever asked them, right? And so if you give enough money or you invest enough money, you can become a producer. So it's a high bar, maybe $250,000, but you don't have to invest it. You just have to go out and find that money and bring it to the table. And you too could become a Broadway producer. It's not like years of study or you got to have some, magic formula. No, if you can raise money or you have money to put in a show, you too could be a Broadway producer. And then you get an insider's view about what actually happens. As a co-producer, like I said, as a consultant, you can see all the decisions are being made and why the decisions are being made. So for me, it is very important to have Black people investors, because Black people then can come become producers, perhaps, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the producers are the first gatekeepers. Those are the people who decide what you see on stage. Because if I don't decide to pick up a show and create it, it doesn't get done. And that story is not told. So it's important for me, as part of my push to diversify the space, that I bring more Black and Brown people into the role of investors as well as producers. Because then, as one of my friends and one of my mentees says, if she cracks open that door, she's bringing her crew with her. Come on in, right? So that's very exciting for me, to have so many new people of color, having a hand in what's happening on Broadway.
Out of curiosity, so do you work with your mentees? Is that strictly independent or through the Black Theater Coalition?
Well, most of them are independent. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
most of them have just found me and said, "Hey, I want to work with you," or
Mm-hmm.
intern, or whatever. But I do have people that I meet through that organization as well, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I make myself available as much as I can to people if I know that they're serious about being a producer. I will find some time to do it. And see, that the reason why I do mentoring as opposed to interning is because if I can't really, I don't have the bandwidth to support an intern, because an
Mm-hmm.
intern, you really need to spend a lot of hands-on time. You have to give them assignments, and then you have to not only critique the assignments, but support them in executing the assignments. And they need to get something out of it because it's an educational experience. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to have a lot of hands-on. And because I'm a one-man operation, I don't really have the kind of time to be able to devote to interning or having interns come with me. But
Mm-hmm.
mentors, I may even speak to a mentor of mine, like, once or twice a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I can bring them into meetings, and they can listen and see what is that I do, and hear why I do what I do, and things of that sort. But an internship is something that's bigger and requires more work. But if every producer, Black, white, or otherwise, took on one mentee of color, we would have hundreds of Black and Brown people who were on the road to becoming a mover and a shaker in the Broadway industry.
You raise a very important point. One, folk like me are so grateful when people like you take us under your wing to care and so into us. I used to, for extra credit, I used to tell my students to do something I did back in the day, and I would cold write people. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there were plenty of people who didn't answer me, but there were also jobs and relationships I still have to this day because I cold wrote them or just walked up to, was blessed to be in the same room with them, whether it be through doing press with Black and Making It, or like Regina Taylor. She had no idea who I was. I just wrote her. And 2 years after that initial point of contact, I heard back. But to this day, we still have a mentor mentee relationship that is there and in place that I value. So thank you to you. Thank you to all of those who care to reach back, because unfortunately, there are some people out there who don't care to reach back. So we're grateful to people like you. So digging a little deeper into this producer thing. So again, thinking just very keeping it real in the Black community, we have a lot more people who would rather be on stage or in front of the screen because it's the glamorous part, right? We have parents who are nervous about any part of the arts, period. But let's break down what rare is the young Black person who would rather produce than be on stage. What are and let me be very clear, I have 2 theater degrees. I value being on stage. I'm not poo-pooing on being on stage, but I think sometimes our people miss out on other. You can do multiple. We rattled off a whole bunch of people who do multiple things. Nobody said you can't do the other. What are the perks? You've talked about some of it, gatekeeper, helping to make decisions as people complain about things they don't like. Well, being a producer can help be a part of that solution. What would be the number one thing, or whatever little tidbit you have for why you might want to consider being a producer in addition to being on stage, or whatever other part of the creative process you're being attracted to.
That's a, God, you asked so many great questions. Well, in addition to the things that we've already spoken about, like again, being the gatekeeper, you make the decisions about what is going to come to the stage.
Mm-hmm.
For me, what's really, really important is that as an African American queer man, that my voice is uniquely mine. And because I know and grew up in the African American community, I know my culture exceedingly well, right? Because we as Black people, we have to learn the culture that we grow up in, and then we have to learn the culture of the world in the United States as white people. So you have to have, you know, we hear this phrase code switching, right? Which is how you speak when you're talking to your best girlfriend, which is, girl, let me tell you what, it is very different than when you're having a conversation with a Fortune 500 CEO, right? And we have to code switch. And so, having grown up in this culture, I know what authentic voices sound like. So, as a Black man producing Black shows, I know and can find the people whose voices are authentic and whose experiences are authentic and can authentically represent the culture. If you're not from our culture, then you can suppose what it would be like to grow up, you know, as a, you know, as a, I was come from an automotive family back in the day. We ain't got had a whole lot of money in Detroit, right? There was no way in God's green earth I was even considering that I might be a producer, because I wouldn't know what a producer did anyway, you know, for Broadway, that I might, you know, win some award for that. But that happens is because I think of myself as a good storyteller. I tell people, I don't know everything, but I do know a good story when I hear it. And so as a producer, you get to have a hand in bringing the authentic voices that you value to the stage or the screen or wherever it's going to be presented. And if that's of value to you, to me, that's really, really, really important. Really important. So
Mm-hmm.
having that as a side effect and a reason why for me is very high on my list about why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so this is all great. This is good. I'm gonna give this to my students too. Like for real, it's a part of why I started this when I was in grad school, was to help crack open this world to the Black community, because I was looking around and going, we have really amazing artists doing really amazing things, and there's a certain, I dare say, fairly large percent of the Black community who just doesn't know or assumes it's not for them. And I really wanted to work to change that, because stories like yours are so valuable for people to hear. You know, growing up, you may not have thought you could do that, but this could be a career path for you, something different.
Absolutely.
Something different, perfectly viable. So
Absolutely.
Black in Making It not only airs on my channel, it also airs on Fly Nubian Queen, which has a really big subscriber base. But a big aspect of that channel is, one, it's Black woman centric, but also two, money sense, right? So you were talking about, I want to tip back to the producer bit when we're still on it, and you talking about investing or helping to raise money to invest in. How shall I say, as there are conversations in our community about multiple streams of income, so forth and so on, how does or can producing live in that world? If somebody wants to enter this world, what do they, I know you can't say it all in this short amount of time, nor should you probably, but what are, I will just ask this flat, and if I need to cut it out later, I'll cut it out.
Okay, just put it out there.
How lucrative, right? As people are thinking of it, that's a thing that this audience looks for. I never thought about that. Maybe I should come over here and consider this. What was speak ye to this, please?
Well, here's the thing about particularly about Broadway. I'm not talking about regional theater. I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking specifically, I'm not talking about film. I'm talking about
Right.
Broadway in particular.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
Broadway in particular, most Broadway shows do not recoup their investment. Only about
Mm-hmm.
20% of the shows recoup their investment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like these, one, two, maybe three in a generation shows that
Mm-hmm.
are just blow it out of the box. Hamilton being one of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can
Mm-hmm.
almost guarantee you that no one associated with that show at the very beginning said this is going to be probably $1 billion brand. Who knew? You don't
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of what we as Black people who are looking for revenue streams, we need to look at what the opportunities are for employment on Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just about the producer and it's not just about the
Right.
actor and not just about
Mm-hmm.
the director. Someone has to make and design all those costumes. Someone
Mm-hmm.
has to design, figure out what the lighting is going to be. Someone has to design the sound for the show. Someone has
Mm-hmm.
to do the hair and the makeup. You have to have a wig mistress or a wig master. So
Mm-hmm.
there are so many someone has to build the stages, for Christ's sake. So there's so
Mm-hmm.
many people of so many different types that are employed to put on a show that you could look at from a vocational point of view that most people, particularly Black people, don't even consider, because they don't really
Mm-hmm.
know what goes on behind the scenes. They just come to see a show and they go, oh my God, it was amazing. But you don't really understand. Someone had to write that music, right? Someone had to come up with a
Mm-hmm.
score. Someone had to actually put words to it, had to come up with some lyrics. Someone had to, so there are many vocational opportunities there. Now, if you're looking at the producing point of view, being lucrative is about finding the project that you feel is going to have legs to be financially successful. So for me
Mm-hmm.
now, when I look at a show that I'm going to bring to Broadway, it needs to have one of three things. It needs either A, to have a big star in it that people just want to come and see. That would be
Mm-hmm.
someone like a Denzel Washington, because if you put Denzel Washington in your show, you will make your money back. That's just a given. Or it can be a brand. We talked about Soul Train. People know what that
Mm-hmm.
is. You don't have to figure that out. MJ the musical. It's about Michael
Mm-hmm.
Jackson. That's a brand. He is one of the
Yes.
largest brand on the planet, right? So that already puts you ahead in terms of making your money back, because people are going to want to see the show. Or third, it needs to be very inexpensive. So that's why I'm doing this show about prison reform, essentially, that is a one-man show with a three-piece band. Why? Because it's only going to cost about $3 million to mount that on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to, for example, a Broadway musical that during its life will take or require somewhere around $20 million to bring
Mm-hmm.
to the Broadway stage. So from my point of view, those are the three things that I look for, that I feel it's a bet. Everything is a bet. It's a very risky investment for
Mm-hmm.
not only investors, but even people like me, because you know what? If the show does not recoup, I don't make any money. I could spend 7 years developing something, and if it doesn't become profitable, I don't get any money. I get like a weekly salary while the show's running of like $1,400. But
Mm-hmm.
that does not account for the years that I spent in helping to develop it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
important for me to look and assess great stories, and not only great stories, but great stories that I think are going to make money, that people are going to want to come see.
Mm. Hmm. If I were, it's random thought, random, not random. That Alicia Keys show that's coming. I was like, huh.
Hell's Kitchen.
Is it at the? Did it go up yet at the public?
I think it's going to open shortly. Yeah, I think it's going to open shortly. I
Yeah, I
got
saw it come across my social media. I said, huh. She yet lives, yet her story she wants to tell.
there. You go. That's right. That's right.
Yes, don't wait till I'm dead. Come on, let's tell it. Let's tell it
Absolutely.
now.
That's
Tina
right.
Tina Turner, as you mentioned, MJ. I think about Harry Potter, Legally Blonde. It's so ironic now. I'm kind of venturing, and I'll loop it in real quick. But as a playwright, very interestingly, as you are submitting for as a playwright, it is literally my self-assigned job to apply for everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the irony that I find and see sometimes is that many opportunities will say no adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
But then I look at Broadway marquees and go, oh, Legally Blonde, Harry Potter,
Mm-hmm.
Wicked, all
Mm-hmm.
these adaptations. Because it's the sure dollar. And
It
it's the
is
sure
because
dollar.
it is because why? Because we as an audience, we love the familiar. And I think that's part of, a bigger discussion that has to do with the society that we live in today and the
Mhm.
fear and the uncertainty, about so many things with wars that are going on in the Ukraine, wars that are going on in Gaza, interest rate hikes, ability to buy, home. It's just so much uncertainty. But if I go see a movie about Superman, I now know, okay, I know Superman. I love Superman. I want to see Superman do Superman things, right? And the same thing for Broadway, right? I love MJ. I'm sure, I am absolutely sure someone is developing a musical based on Prince.
Oh, it's got to be.
I would go see that.
We,
Wouldn't you go see that?
yes,
Don't
yes,
even
yes.
exactly. Don't even know any who cares who's in it. Do you know what I mean? Who cares what the theater is? I love Prince. I'm going to go see a show where I can hear Prince music. Sold.
Good jukebox.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's, Motown musical, Jersey Boys. But I think we've made the point. Yeah.
Yeah, we
So
got
bring
Alanis Morissette, right? But again, the point still remains that people love what they know, and
Mhm.
and what they know, if it's something that they love and know is on stage, then they're going to want to go see it. It's just that simple. It's not rocket science.
Right, right. And people do want to make that money back. So I, I understand the attraction for existing. Now here's okay. Oh, I'll save it. I'll move on. I'll move on. I'm going
No,
into
no, no.
my
You got to give us
my.
a sense what it was. No, come on now. That's the tease.
Here's the fascinating one for me. I talk to my students about adaptations, right? And especially when I talk to them about ancient Greek theater and how they would put up shows, because they already are not enthused about Greek theater, right? They would put on these shows and festival about myths they already knew. And so I'd ask them, so why do we think they're going? Why would they keep going to the festival? I said, how many of y'all have seen a movie you read a book about? How many of you have watched a TV series inspired by a film you watched? What's fascinating for me and what was making me giggle was Mean Girls film translates to Broadway musical, and it's coming back to film as Broadway musical.
There you go.
If it made money once, do it two more times.
Do it until you don't make any more money. That's why do you think 007 is a brand that has lived for
Forever.
decades? Because people love 007. When you say 007, you already know what that means. It's going to have high body count. There's probably going to be pyrotechnics. It's going to be very adventurous. There's going to be car scenes and driving scenes that are mind-bogglingly like, oh my God, this is amazing. There's going to be a love affair or some kind of like romantic thing that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so you go see, just like, you'll go see, like I said, Superman or whoever your favorite Marvel character is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're familiar with it. So that's the reason why I used to get upset about, oh my God, everything that's old is new again. All originality is out the window. And that's going to be the death knell of theater and blah, 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 blah. No, but the fact of the matter is, if you can make a shit ton, pardon my French, excuse me, audience members, for cursing on this lovely lady's show, and please forgive me. If you can make a whole bunch of money on a property, who cares if it's a reboot of something? Because you know what? I can take the money that I make off of that reboot and then go do some brand new
Something
play.
else.
This has
Mm-hmm.
nothing that don't nobody know nothing about, right? And I can take that
Mm-hmm.
chance. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, and I won't say unexpected, but the money business side of this conversation, I'm glad came to fruition through us talking about Sugar Hill. So we'll go ahead and round things, bring it back full circle. I'm so excited that you and your team are bringing Sugar Hill to the stage and this wonderful adaptation of Nutcracker that infuses our Black culture and Black music. Tell us again, tell us where it's opening, how we get tickets, how do we follow on social? Give us all that information, please.
Absolutely. So, of course, we're on social media. So you will find us on Instagram.
Mhm,
Sugar Hill Nutcracker is kind of like the phrase that you use.
mhm,
We have a website, www.sugarhillnutcracker.com.
mhm.
You can go there to buy tickets, but acknowledge, let me say this, it has to be updated because we're opening in Chicago, not New York City. So if you're in the Chicago area, you can go there and it will take you to the venue, which is the auditorium where we're performing the show, and you can buy your tickets for the show there. So that will also be, because this show, I know it's going to be an evergreen show. And by what I mean by that is that um, it can be a show that can run over a holiday season year after year. Like,
Mhm.
a ballet company puts on the Nutcracker
Yes.
every single year. And this
Mhm,
is an offering that theaters can do every single year. So, from
mhm,
an investment point of view, it's like a no brainer, in my opinion, right? But
mhm,
it's going to open in Chicago December 19th, www.sugarhillnutcracker.com. Then we're going to go to Pittsburgh. Again,
mhm,
buy the tickets, on the website when we are connecting and set ticket sales up for that. And next
mhm.
year, we're going to spend 20 weeks in China, right? So I don't know if you're Black people who are on here and you're in China, keep your eye out because we're going to certainly be a couple of 3 weeks in Shanghai, among other
Mhm.
provinces. So come check us out.
You're making me think about one of my classmates who, when she left grad school, she was a stage manager for Disney Shanghai.
There
And they
you
have
go.
to tell you, swing through Sugar Hill.
That's right. Because I'm telling you, you will love this show. If you don't love this show, I'll give you your money back. Now,
There we
you're
have
going to
it.
find me first, by the way, but I will give you money. I'm so certain that people will love this show. There's just no way people will not just love this show. It's no way.
Yeah, well, when you mention it being evergreen, it makes me think about where I am in Texas. I see about every theater has every Black theater,
Black
Nativity,
nativity.
Black Nativity, and we love it every year, and it
Every
sells
year.
every year. So
Every
last bit, next to last bit, how can people, they're like, you know what? I saw this Ron Simons fella and I thought his story was pretty cool and I just want to keep up with him and what he's doing. Do you have socials people can follow?
Of course, of course. Simon Says Entertainment has a website, www.simonsays.entertainment.com.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
We're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and it's usually Simon Says ENT for entertainment. And you can just follow us if you'd like from the website. And, we will put you on the mailing list so that when we have new projects coming up, we can email you and let you know what's going on. And you can follow what stuff that Simon Says is doing. And we, as you know, we do film and we do plays and we do now have a podcast I'm developing. So it's a lot of really cool stuff that's going on over here at Simon Says. So yeah, definitely check us out, follow us, like us, whatever. And that's how you keep in touch.
Awesome. And the last question that ends every interview. What does it mean to you to be Black and making it? We'll end on that note.
For me to mean Black and making it is all about my legacy. So when I'm dead and buried, I want people to remember there was this guy. I think his name something about Simon's because I think his name company was Simon Says Entertainment. But I want people to look at the body of work that I've created and go, wow, this man created work that added dialogue to the African American community through art. I tell people all the time that my activism is storytelling. And so I tell stories to facilitate change, because storytelling is the most powerful agent for change on the planet. Because if you can grab someone by the heartstrings, then they will listen to you. So for me, it's all about the legacy that one builds and what that is for future generations, who that person who builds a legacy will never meet.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Simons, for sharing your time with us today. Everybody, go get your tickets. Nice little family vacay. Hit Chicago, Pittsburgh. It's coming. If it's not near you now, it'll be near you later. And we claim it now. It'll be near you in the future, in the years to come. Sugar
Amen.
Hill.
Amen.
Sugar Hill. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on Black and Making It. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Now, Ron, don't you leave yet.
Okay.
Don't leave it. Okay, I'm gonna hit stop recording on here.
Okay.